I love the look of a well-lit scene, but lighting is hard work and I'm lazy, so whenever I can I use After Effects to do my lighting. Here's a scene in After Effects. It's very simple. It has 3 layers. It's in 3D space. It's very important that the layers are 3D because lighting only works in 3D. We have a bottom layer, a back layer, and a man walking across. He was originally chroma keyed. He shot in a green screen studio and the key light effect was placed on him. You notice before we do any lighting, everything looks bright and even. But the moment we turn on a light, things will change. The way you turn on a light, you go to After Effects, Layer, you create a new layer, and you make it a new light layer. And it asks you, well, what type of light do you want? Well, let's try a spotlight. There's also a parallel light and an ambient light and a point light, but we'll get to those later. Let's try a spotlight. That's the most common. It asks you what color. Well, let's pick a color. Let's pick yellow. And it asks you, do you want to cast shadows? Well, let's cast shadows. That's the most common. The moment I click OK, the light turns on and the scene looks different. It now is lit by just that light. And it's lit by a yellow light. What can we do with the light? Well, we can adjust the light. All we have to do is open its triangle and open up light options. First thing we see is light intensity. We can make the light brighter or darker just by cranking the intensity higher or lower. That's easy. If we change our mind, I don't like yellow, I can change the color. Let's say I'd like a blue light. We can also, with a spotlight, we can change the cone angle. In other words, that's like flooding or spotting the light. Let's make it just about like that. And there are many other things, but we notice the light is casting shadows. And you may ask, well, why doesn't the man cast a shadow? The default in After Effects is that layers do not cast shadows. Why? I don't know. I didn't write the program. You have to go to the layer and tell that layer to cast a shadow. So I open up the triangle on this layer. I notice it now has material options, and cast shadows default is off. If I click on it once, it's on. And now, when the man moves, he casts a shadow. There's also a third option, which is kind of strange. I can turn it to only. That means the man disappears, but his shadow appears. Why would you do this? I don't know, unless you wanted to create the illusion of a ghost or something. Let's go back to cast shadows on, which is probably the most normal way to set the shadows. We can now move the light around and get a different effect. You notice if I select the light layer, there's a sort of an umbrella-looking shape up here with a point. The point is called the point of interest, and that's where the light is pointing. In other words, if I had a spotlight, I could pan it here, I could pan it there, I could tilt it up or down. I can make the light point anywhere I want, but I can also move the light. Here are the 3 axes. The x-axis, if I click on the x-axis, I can drag the light right or left. That's like picking up a light stand and moving it around the set. And of course, I could also make the light higher or lower in the set. That's like extending the light set. And I can also move the light forward and backwards in 3D space. I find the Z arrow. Now the light is moving closer to the man. Now it's moving further from the man, and the shadow changes. If I move it too far, it gets behind the man. The light is actually behind him, so he's dark. So I'm going to pull the light forward in the set, away, and I'm going to try to create a big dramatic effect, so I'll make the light very low and pointing up here like this, so we have a really sort of creepy, ominous, dramatic effect. As the man walks in, maybe the light should precede him, so we'll move the light over to the left. We'll make the light point in this direction, so as the man walks into the scene, the shadow will come before it, like a film noir sort of ominous look. You can adjust many things about the light, of course. You can even adjust the fuzziness of the shadow. I just have to open the light layer. You notice that there's a shadow diffusion. I can crank the shadow diffusion a little higher, and the shadow becomes softer. I can crank the shadow diffusion a lot, and the shadow becomes very soft. So you have a lot of control over the look of lighting. Now this is just one light. We can add more lights and get a more complex effect, but just for the beginning, this is how to start creating a light in After Effects.